All right, guys, patch version 1.1.0 has dropped for Total War Warhammer 3, and it is pretty juicy. So before we actually get into the full patch notes, Creative Assembly has this kind of Spark Notes version breakdown, which I would usually do on my own, but it's right here. So let's go ahead and read this before we get into the bigger notes. So numerous crash fixes and performance optimizations, a major overhaul of the Realm of Chaos mechanics, a much anticipated fix for bugged interactions between the Everlasting Gift Tech and Gift of Slaanesh upgrade, a fix to ensure that supply line values update properly when disbanding a Lord, and fixes a numerous issues blocking players from completing the prologue. And this one is so huge. A one-on-one training montage to bulk up the Daemon Prince, aka Daniel. So they're kind of making light of this, but it is stupid how much of a buff he's been given. Like, his melee attack went from a base 20 up to 45, and his melee defense, I think, went from 25 to 50, something along those lines. And we'll take a look at the actual numbers as we go down. Also, major adjustments to the Demons of Chaos gifts and gift sets. So the Daemon Prince as a whole has been overhauled in a big way when it comes to stats, for its base stats and for each and every piece of equipment it can use, and for all of the I guess demonic gifts, but the passive gifts is what they're talking about here. So any of those innate gifts that you get as you progress up to the actual dedication point in the Daemon Prince of Chaos campaign. It's really, really huge. So next, we have another big improvement here with the first improvements to unit responsiveness, with more coming later. Units now brace against a charging attack for charge reflection to take effect. Balance updates for most factions and several faction-specific units. 2 returning domination battlefields, Arnheim and Battle for Itza, and major updates to the domination multiplayer mode, including larger starting armies and an update to supply mechanics. So that's honestly your quick down and dirty breakdown of what this update includes. And it is, for the most part, a really solid update. I'm not going to lie to you. When I took a look at some of the stuff for the Realm of Chaos, it's a lot of really good overhaul to mechanics. But I still think one of the biggest issues, and they have said, and I haven't read through the entirety of these patch notes. We're going to do that together. At the very end, there might be some sort of discussion about the actual Steam Workshop. But one thing to note here is that the Realm of Chaos cannot be shut off by default. You now go through it, you do your deed, and you can banish Be'lakor, and that gives you a huge bonus to your campaign. That's pretty cool, but you can't just press a button and shut it off, which I'd really appreciate. But I would say that the overhaul to these mechanics make it so that you can kind of completely ignore the Realm of Chaos, go intercept the AI that's about to do the Forge of Souls battle, and they lose all of their souls. So they have to completely restart their race. So you can pretty much ignore it and just do that a battle every so often and jump into it. And now that we get the new protection line of building, in the protection line of buildings, we now have the ability to make it so that rifts won't even spawn in your territory. So there's, I guess you could say that's kind of a little frustrating, because you now have to waste a building slot on making something that would ignore a mechanic that you'd rather just have shut off if you possibly could. So when we do get that actual mod capability unlocked with Steam Workshop, I'm sure someone's just going to make an easy mod to shut that thing off entirely. And we've already kind of gone through plenty of ways that you can shut it off using the code. But let's go into the actual deeper patch notes here. So if you have any kind of big worries or big things you wanted to take a look at, hopefully we'll solve that with the larger dump into these notes. But if that's all you wanted to know, you can go ahead and head on out, go ahead and update your game to 1.1.0 and have some fun. Before you do head out, if you did appreciate the video or you are enjoying the video, don't forget to like, comment, and or subscribe. Like I always say, that stuff helps me far more than it should. Let's get started here on the update 1.0 patch notes. 1.1.0, not 1.0. That wouldn't make any sense. So this is all the information on how to download from all the respective platforms, Microsoft Store, Steam, or Epic. But let's get into the juicy here. So this is unfortunately a picture. Creative Assembly has sent the patch notes out ahead of time to all the content creators. So I can't highlight things like I usually like to do when talking about this kind of stuff. And I can't kind of click on anything. So I apologize for that. Hopefully it's not hard to follow. I've kind of increased the size on everything here. But for the game stability and performance, we have, of course, the alt tabbing bug has had a fix done to it. We're going to see how much of a fix that is. You know, that might still apply to some people. But fixed a crash triggered after losing a caravan, saving the next turn, and then reloading the file. Fixed a crash triggered when selecting a hero within an army while moving that army to the merge with another. Fixed a crash that could occur when in multiplayer campaign to set to allow simultaneous turns. A player exited the match during another team's turn. Some other crash bugs throughout this as well. If you're having a lot of crashes, look to see if it's been fixed here in this list. For the graphics here, fixed a visual issue when selecting Kislev war sleds. Tzeentch's Realm fixed a stretched texture that appears in the background geometry during the ambush battle and added a missing skybox to the pre-battle loading screen. So just again, it just kind of fixes here and there to the graphics. Audio, updated the unit audio for lead belchers and iron blasters for a bigger punch. UI, fixed an issue which prevented accents from displaying properly in the lobby's news feed, and added a missing icon for the effect in the Wood Elf building tree, and added the correct category icon for the Herald of Slaanesh shadow. Didn't know that was a thing. So for gameplay mechanics though, we've changed how corrupted traits are removed in Total War Warhammer 3. Corrupted traits are now removed as the corrupted character spends time in a province with the lower levels of that particular type of corruption. This isn't different to any other type of corruption in that province. So I like that a lot. You don't have to go to the actual provincial capital, which had that ability to remove it, or build the actual building. You just simply have to spend time in a low corruption of that specific. So for example, if I've got a corrupted trait of Nurgle, I spend time in a low or 0 corruption Nurgle location, and it could possibly just shut off of me, which is cool. So some other things here. The supply lines values will now update properly when disbanding a lord. Fix an issue where the everlasting gift technology would remove some of the effects of the Gift of Slaanesh upgrade rather than applying the correct bonuses, which is cool. Fix an issue where the Firemouth settlement would provide the option to construct major settlement buildings rather than minor settlement buildings. Fixed a bug where units stationed at an ogre camp located in hostile territory could not replenish their army. Removed several obstructions to the line of sight around tower construction points on the Grisenwald Empire. Fixed an issue where losing a caravan would result in an inactive recruit caravan button for the following turn. That's a big one. Fix an issue with auto-resolve where attacking an enemy army in a settlement resulted in better outcomes than when an enemy army attacked the player. So this is one I think that all of us have seen the most. And I think a lot of us have chalked this up to simply being like, oh, you know, this is the auto-resolve giving too much credit to range units or whatnot. Personally, that's how I was looking at it. So it's interesting to see that this is actually correspondent to attacking an enemy army in a settlement versus attacking versus an enemy army attacking the player. So it's interesting to see how that all works. Fix an issue where infinite winds of magic could be generated due to a rounding error with a reserves and recharge rate. You know what? That makes sense, because I guess I never really dealt with winds of magic being an issue after I had the trait that would drain my winds of magic. So interesting there. Fix an issue where the battle speed would switch to slow motion without any input during replays. Interesting indeed. So with the campaign, some stuff fixed for the prologue. If you're having issues with the prologue, go ahead and look at this, but it's pretty much made it so that you can actually progress. You're not having your progression blocked. But the big one here in the campaign is the Realm of Chaos, and a lot of changes here. So reduce the effect of negative traits inflicted upon entering the Realm of Chaos by 50%. Demon legendary lords will no longer be inflicted by the negative traits within the realm of their respective gods. So if you're playing Kugoth, you won't get any negative traits when you are in Nurgle's realm. Negative traits inflicted by the Realm of Chaos will now be removed when a legendary lord completes the survival battle within that realm. Great, love that. Upon intercepting an AI faction at the Forge of Souls, the legendary lord will now lose their souls rather than being wounded for 15 turns. This will force them to collect the souls over again. Again, I like this because it is a way to pretty much ignore the whole entire Realm of Souls mechanic and just simply fight one of those battles whenever it occurs. It is frustrating that you then have to deal with it, because if you fall behind a power curve and the AI is sitting there with like 5 greater demons and a ton of soul grinders in that army, and they go to do the Forge of Souls battle and you have this crap ass army, or you're in an inopportune moment where you just did maybe a colonization and you weren't aware that the AI was about to jump into the Forge of Souls, you might be having your legendary lord army do an interception, fighting that with an army that's just been depleted from the colonization. So there is kind of a lot of instances where this is going to become annoying if you want to ignore the Realm of Souls. So be mindful of that. It's more of a band-aid, not a fix, so it is nice to see it regardless. The protection chain of buildings can now be constructed to prevent rifts from spawning in the province in which they're built, because rifts are so goddamn annoying when you have a large empire. Completing a survival battle will now provide the winning faction with the following benefits for 10 turns, and I like this. Plus or minus 5 of the winning faction's corruption across all provinces, plus 8 control across all provinces, plus 15 growth, and plus 10% income again across all provinces. Additional adjustments made to the following realms. Tzeentch realm, options offered during dilemmas triggered at points of interest will now provide replenishment. So, and you guys can tell me if I'm reading this wrong, but I'm reading that as no matter what option you choose, you will get replenishment in addition to that option. And also for Tzeentch's realm, boon from Tzeentch, this option offered by the dilemma now properly displays its reward when it appears. So what I kind of don't like right now, though, about this is I haven't seen the biggest issue with Tzeentch's realm is that the AI cheats and gets there in 5 turns. Well, after 5 turns, they get to the actual platform for the survival battle. Then they go up to the survival battle in another turn. They wait there for a turn, and then they do it. So it's like 7-8 turns, and then the AI will just go ahead and win Tzeentch's realm. So they still haven't fixed that, or at least that's not transparent in these patch notes. Maybe it's kind of like one of those quote unquote shadow patches people always call it, where it's not an actual note, but it's actually been fixed. So we'll see how that kind of shakes itself out. People that are way more tech savvy can probably check in the code, or this can actually be tested. I unfortunately don't have access to this right now to test it. Maybe there was a beta and I just haven't done it and I'm an idiot, but still. That's probably the biggest issue with Tzeentch's realm. Nurgle's realm, the attrition resistance effect granted by the points of interest now lasts 20 turns instead of further duration spent in the realm. This means that the boon can now also be carried back to the mortal world. So I wonder if this will shut off, though, after you win Nurgle's realm. Because if it doesn't, that's actually pretty cool from a campaign standpoint, because if it allows you to start doing some pretty exotic campaign expansions that you probably wouldn't be able to do otherwise because of attrition resistance or attrition issues. Nurgle realm flying units can no longer be deployed atop the Nurgle Island environment prop, and players can no longer replace the legendary lord of an army with a regular lord when at the Forge of Souls. Fixed a rare issue which would result in the Forge of Souls rift being closed despite having access to the final battle. Then we also have Be'lakor here. After completing the campaign, the player will now be given the option to banish Be'lakor. This will provide the following permanent benefits. 3 hero recruit capacity, plus 14 hero and lord recruit rank, plus 5 wins of magic per turn for all armies, and then 7 control, 25 growth, and 15% income on all provinces. One additional change made to the Lord, Be'lakor now has a starting trait that grants access to his unique battle ability, Shadow Shroud, rather than it being granted by default. And an additional fix for the campaign, fix an issue where completing a campaign and clicking continue to the records would replay Bellacor's first voiceover line rather than the proper line. So I guess you could make the argument here too that this kind of makes winning the campaign and choosing to banish Be'lakor sets you up to just kind of, oh, have fun, go crazy, here's all your benefits and buffs, go paint the map. But getting to that point, I think, is kind of going to be the frustration for a lot of players if they don't want to deal with the Chaos Realm, or if it's their second, third, fourth, fifth playthrough, you know what I mean? So moving into the Demon of Chaos, into Danny Daniels, we get some, Danny Daniels, is that a porn star? Oh man, this just got wild. So Danny Daniels here was underperforming in battles against enemy lords, so we've adjusted his base stats. Look at this, melee attack 25 to 50, melee defense 20 to 45. Okay, I mixed those up in the prologue here, but you can see that that's some pretty nice changes. Base damage and AP from 200 to 22 to 225, and then armor's increased by a nice 10 up, or I'm sorry, yeah, by 10, from 10 to 20, and then charge bonus from 30 to 40. And all of his starting, I guess, what do we call these things? Starting gifts. They've all been kind of toned down to compensate for this huge increase to his base stats. But we'll take a look at the other items. They've all been like stupidly enhanced. So we'll go through those in just a second. But for the demonic progression offerings, what they've kind of done here is everything that's prior to your full-on dedication has been buffed, and the things that are post-dedication have been buffed as well. But I guess they wanted to try to make it so that things are more balanced here. So we've increased the values of the pre-dedication demonic progression offering bundles to keep them all balanced. The post-dedication offerings have also been buffed with some extra power as you dedicate yourself to your chosen god, including buffs to this god's-specific recruitment ranks of units, agents, and lords. This should shorten the time it takes for your lords to reach their exalted forms, which I actually really like because, you could dedicate to Khorne, and maybe through technology and through the boons, I think it's like you get +3 recruitment, lord recruitment rank, stuff like that. So this enables you to kind of get that more online, more on track. So you can see right here, increase the dedicated god-specific lord recruitment rank from 3 to 10. So that is way better, right? So you're way more likely to get your exalted lord because you're what, 3, 4, 5 ranks away after that. And then I think there's a tech, no, not a technology. Yeah, I think there's the Daemon Prince has one tech that helps out with, well, it's not a tech, it's a skill, right? That's how his technology tree works. That helps out with lord recruitment rank, and I can't remember off the top of my head. But reduced the dedicated god-specific unit recruitment times by 2, removed the casualty replenishment rate bonus for Khorne offering, but added a 25% the campaign movement range after winning a battle. So you can see that these are really nice kind of balancing buffs and whatnot. Removed the building cost reduction bonus, but added a global recruitment bonus to Nurgle units. Slaanesh offering here increased the diplomatic relations with all factions from 10 to 25, really helping you out a lot with a lot of the diplomatic issues you will face in Danny Daniels' campaign. Remove the chance to increase the strength of Winds of Magic when charging, but change it to increase the chance to strengthen the Winds of Magic skill from 10% to 25%. Then offering 9 here, increase the dedicated god-specific unit recruitment rank for all your armies from 3 to 6. So I love these changes because it makes it seem like after you progress to a certain point, you could roll out some serious lords, some serious units, and I think it's a great way to kind of keep the power curve for Daniel here pretty much in check. Now take a look at these demonic prince gifts, man. 30% to 45%. Replace blue fire with infernal gateway. Well, that's whatever it is. But melee defense from 5 to 8. Almost all of this says increased. None of this says decreased. Replaced infernal gateway with gate of chaos. And a lot of these replacements have been because of redundancies, right? Like fixed a bug where the Tzeentch head items had the transmutation of lead instead of final transmutation, which resulted in certain arm and head upgrades offering the same spell. I think they did this to kind of make it so that certain piece combinations could actually work out to give you less spell redundancy or more spell variety, probably one or the other. But let me see if there's any like standout ones. Like serrated scythes increased AP from 45 to 60%. So because you're losing a weapon, right? Your arm is now the weapon. So these have become a lot more punchy. Increased AP from 30% to 45%. Again, that same situation there. The scythes up here, the demonic scythes, increased base damage from 30% to 45%. Factor his base stat increase on top of all this, and it's great. So even the demonic arms, man, melee attack and defense from 3 to 8, 5 to 8. So again, factor that base increase into these, and the Demon Prince just became so much stronger, and I think this was really needed. I didn't know they would kind of give this level of improvement because these are some pretty blown out stats. Let's look at some of the weapons here just to kind of, again, get a really good example here. Axe of Rage, AP 35 to 45, and then base damage 30 to 40. So everything, again, increased across the board. Something that was sorely needed. Festering Spear has gotten the Charmed weapon effect. Almost all Slaanesh's weapons have gotten the special effects added onto them. I can't do a Control F to show you, but here Sword of Allure has gotten the Charmed. Sword of Sin has gotten the Charmed weapon effect. So a lot more characters been added into the Slaanesh weapons, which I really like a lot here too. Overall, really stoked on a lot of these improvements. I'd like to see how this all kind of plays itself out. On paper, this looks great, but want to see how this actually plays itself into a Demon Prince campaign now. General fixes, though, fix an issue where narrative events would continue to trigger after completing a campaign, including rifts reopening in the world, and fix the issue where Boris would not be created as a new faction and does not appear in the Lord's recruitment pool after completing the Frozen Falls. So interesting enough. Now for battles. This is a spicy topic. So in Total War Warhammer 3, we've heavily reworked how Vortex, Wind, Breath, and similar spells work from earlier games in the series. One of the biggest changes relates to the damage reduction applied over distance, which has been removed entirely in Warhammer 3. This results in drastically increased damage potency across the board, which naturally required a rebalance of every spell in the game. Unfortunately, there was one spell that was missed. People noticed when implementing the new system. So Penumbral Pendulum has been nerfed, quote unquote. Reduced damage dealt from 72 to 36. AP cost remains at 50%, and reduced damage on the Overcast from 108 to 45. Again, just kind of bringing it's not a nerf so much as bringing it in line with the way the rest of the spell should be. So for unit responsiveness, we've gotten a big change here too. The responsiveness of units as they join and engage with enemies on the battlefield is a notable pain point for players. There is a alliteration there. As a starting point, we've included several bug fixes with today's build, which shouldn't begin to improve the responsiveness of melee and ranged units, improved how infantry units react to orders and turn to face enemies. Their behavior should now match the responsiveness of infantry units in Warhammer 2. Big win there. Big win. Fix an issue which caused ranged units to fire slower when docked on a siege wall or similar structure, or just not fire at all. Fix an issue which would cause ranged units to reset their animation without having fired. Again, I think that would probably result in them not even firing. Locked control groups will no longer enter guard mode when receiving an attack order. That I didn't know that was a thing. I didn't know that turning a locked control group is what was causing the guard mode issue. I just thought it was the game not writing the fact that I shut off default guard mode too. So that's very, very nice. So there are still a handful of issues we'll be looking to solve in future updates, including the responsiveness of airborne units transitioning to the ground, how units disengage from combat, and knocked down behavior. For now, let us know what you think about the above fixes and if anything else appears off. Let's go through some more of these notes and I'll give you my opinion here. But the charge reflection attribute will now require units to be braced against the charging attacker in order to take effect. And this is why we would see unbraced spearmen just doing so much damage to charging cav, because they weren't braced, which should have been the thing that was triggering their charge reflection, and it wasn't. And so, of course, all of a sudden they would just get this massive chunk of health removed onto the unit of cavalry. So it wasn't making a lot of sense. So this is why that was happening. Fix an issue where defending units would use the attacker's mass rather than their own mass for impact damage calculations. Again, that's a huge issue there. Fix an issue where attacker reinforcements would enter from within the defender's city. I've never seen that one. Army reinforcements should now correctly enter a battle according to their position on the campaign map relative to the battle. In domination and survival battles, summoned units will no longer offer a refund after being teleported away from the battlefield. So those are your fixes here to the battle system, and some that are very, very much needed. I would like to see how they kind of deal with ogres and their kind of weird need to bounce off one another, and that might actually have been fixed in this general issues portion, but we'll kind of figure that out as we try and test some of this a little bit. Moving into the faction section, we're going to get pretty specific on each and every faction and kind of what has happened to them. I'm not going to drill down on like say Kislev, because Kislev's in a pretty decent spot. I'm going to look at stuff like the Ogre Kingdoms here. We're going to talk about Tzeentch and their barriers, and we're going to look at Cathay and how this has kind of been balanced out. I'm not as concerned about Khorne, because Khorne was in a pretty good place coming into this. I'm looking more to kind of see how this balance has applied to a lot of either OP, underpowered, or stupid strong mechanics, and we'll kind of look at those right now. So for Ogre Kingdoms here, the Iron Blaster they had kind of envisioned as a shotgun unit and not a sniper type of unit, which is kind of what it's at right now. So this is the changes that have been applied. Increased projectile spread from 7 to 3, reduced the damage dealt by each projectile from 84 to 75, and reduced the AP down by 36, so to 300. So we'll see how this kind of factors itself out. They had wanted this to kind of be a unit that flanks, like I said, flanking followed by shooting down the length of an infantry unit. The below changes aim to push it more in this direction. So we'll see if that changes things, because the Iron Blaster is just, is just a sniper. It really is. It thing can just rip things apart or this unit can rip things apart from downrange and really just suffer no repercussions. Moving into the Gorgers too, Gorgers are expected to quickly smash through light and medium infantry, though we expect them to be vulnerable to range fire, beaten handily by anti-large units, and trade moderately with anti-large infantry. Reducing the AP damage and entity count should help them reach this balance. So they went from 16 to 12 units in entities in a unit, and then their AP has had a pretty substantial nerf from 70 down to 50. So we'll see how those kind of work themselves out. Now, Ogre Kingdoms did have a multiplayer only thing. This just applies pretty much to unit costs and stuff like that. So Iron Blasters have had their unit cost increase from 1400 to 1750, and Ogre Giants now count as a rare single entity for the sake of unit caps. Now, with Grand Cathay, we have a very interesting kind of situation with them where they kind of underperform in in multiplayer, but perform pretty well in campaign because you have so many ways to kind of overlap their buffs. We found that the Grand Cathay has several underperforming units that seem to struggle in most situations: Sky Junks, Sky Lanterns, and Wu Jing War Compasses. We've made some adjustments for the first two units across the board and have reduced the multiplayer cost of Wu Jing War Compasses, so they can now be deployed more efficiently. We've also increased the range which Harmony activates to provide players with more flexibility. This is huge because one of the biggest problems with Harmony, especially if you looked at it from a multiplayer standpoint, was that it would force your units to be so closely packed together that you couldn't take up a lot of board space. So units could wrap around you, you could have a lot more flanks going on. With the increase in size of Harmony from 45 to 60 meter radius, you now can actually spread out nice and good and long and actually get the Harmony effect still active. Sky Junk has had its ammo, though, increased from 15 to 20, and its bomb ability has had its cooldown reduced by 30 seconds. So that should be pretty fun to see. Sky Lantern shots now apply the Shield Breaker effect, which I think it ignores missile resistance. I can't remember. I know it. The Tomb Kings had it on their Regiment of Renown Ushabti Bowmen, and I can't remember what it is off the top of my head right now. But speed increases from 30 to 35 on the Sky Lantern as well, so it'll move around a little bit faster. For general fixes, the Stone Gaze skill now increases armor instead of leadership for Terracotta Sentinels and Wu Jing War Compass units, which is quite nice. I'd rather have that armor increase in leadership. Now for Grand Cathay itself, we've had an decrease in cost from 1100 to 800 for the Wu Jing Compass, and the Astromancer multiplayer cost of putting him on the Wu Jing Compass has been reduced from 950 to 400. That is a pretty significant drop there. Last, to further boost the benefits to Harmony and the faction's overall performance, we are slightly reducing the cost of peasant archers who are slightly too expensive in relation to how they're performing. So that's had a 50 gold reduction as well. So this should help out if you are playing Grand Cathay in multiplayer. It's going to help out if you're playing in campaign, because now you can have some bigger, longer lines. So for Tzeentch, this is a big one. When it comes to barriers, we know the community is concerned that heavy changes could have drastic consequences on Tzeentch's viability on the battlefield. So for now, we're only adjusting the recharge delay. When cycling units to restore their barriers, Tzeentch players will now have to spend significantly more time doing so. So the the restoration period has doubled from 15 seconds to now to 30 seconds. I think that's a good way to start, but I still think there needs to be some sort of cap on the amount of rechargeability of those shields. It's nice that they do recharge now longer, and so you can get a little bit more time to actually do raw damage to the unit, but maybe making that recharge time, keep it at 15 seconds, but have that time increase based off of your Winds of Magic, or the cap based off of your Winds of Magic, stuff like that. Those are a lot of recommendations that Indie Pride and Turin have been making in a lot of their streams, their tournament streams for Turin, or for a lot of the VODs from Indie Pride. So I think that that's something that could be cool and thematic and fun without kind of crippling the player at the same time. But also, I mean, I'm speaking with so much conjecture and speculation that, of course, that could probably be absolutely terrible. So some other buffs here for Tzeentch and some other things, like Warp Flame lowered the armor reduction buff from -15 to -10 and reduced the weakness to fire debuff by 1% as well. Arcane Surge reduced the Winds of Magic reserves generated per second from 0.3 to 0.15. So that has been cut in half here. For Forsaken of Tzeentch, remove the inherent magic resistance from the unit from 40% to 0%. So that is a pretty big buff for them when it comes to their resistances. Exalted Flamers, though, have increased the base ammunition from 10 to 15 in their range from 90 to 150. So be careful, those things will cook you. They've also had their cost increase from 1100 to 1300 as well. For Kislev, it's pretty much an acceleration increase across their base units, their major units of Armored Kossars, Streltsy, and then Zargard. The War Sled as well has had its armor reduced from 70 to 50. The Elemental Bears has its melee defense increased from 20 to 30. And Little Grom has had its damage increase from 145 to 160 and its AP from 580 to 600. So perform a little bit better in close combat. And some increases and reductions to the cost of the Elemental Bear and an increase in the cost of the Light War Sled. Unfortunately, though, Nurgle didn't get a huge buff, but it did get a buff to its speed for the Plague Bearers from 23 to 27, which I believe is now the default speed of the Dwarfs on foot, as opposed to Dwarfs mounted, which don't exist. But Exalted Plague Bearers have matched that as well. Plague Drones have had their ammo increased, and Kugoth's ammunition has been increased from 22 to 35, and increased the healing rate provided by Nurgle Infestation from 1% to 0.2% health per second. So very, very spicy there. And Slaanesh, they said that they would not be touching much, and same thing with Khorne. So you can see that not a lot has really been done with them. Mainly this one, dogfighting technology now provides a Strider attribute to Fleshhounds while increasing their charge bonus. And Slaanesh, they said they kind of want to see how all this shakes out before doing anything, since Slaanesh kind of runs these major thin razor thin margins anyway when it comes to its actual viability between its flanking capability and how it does damage. So they're seeing how this charge stuff works out before they do anything to it. Multiplayer mode, though, we've had some change for domination. There are a few areas of feedback where we're beginning low map count, comeback mechanic, and the supply resource. So they're kind of tweaking those. So we're getting 2 new maps, Arnheim and the Battle for Itza here. Domination gameplay, the army fund distribution between the main army and reinforcements has been rebalanced from 40%, 60% to a solid 50-50. And we've adjusted the additional supplies of player gains when they are trailing in a domination match. So 5 supplies per second when trailing by 1,000 and 10 when trailing by 2,000. So there was a comeback mechanic that was already present in the game, but it just wasn't a substantial amount, and it was always a static amount. So now this has been a variable one based off of, pretty much how far back you are, and it doubles, of course, as you fall into that double deficit. So a nice chance to make a comeback. We'll see how it actually kind of shakes out in the in multiplayer battles. Other changes to how supplies are gained: added 500 initial supplies to the default stockpile, and increased the base supply income from 16 to 20 per second. Remove the supply income provided via damage to enemy units, as this was kind of like, it was like a nebulous number. It's like, oh, you do burst damage and you get some sort of bonus, and you didn't really know how much burst damage would cause it. Was it a charge? Was it a shot from a cannon? Whatever it was. So a lot of that has been done, but they've also temporarily disabled the ability to use the manual targeting system in multiplayer battles, saying that it can be exploited to ignore the reload times of certain units. We are reviewing the system in greater depth, and we'll look to restore it later on. But just some stuff here for the Palace of Slaanesh and other fixes, but they have not mentioned anything in these patch notes for the Steam Workshop, which I'm kind of scared about. And I kind of just read through this real quick, and I didn't see anything that mentioned, hey, the Steam Workshop's coming. But I think that that's going to be a big thing that we need to see in the game way sooner rather than later. They did say that the Steam Workshop would be coming alongside this patch, so I would like to see that added, and maybe we'll see it in its own PR release a day later, or maybe that's coming next week, whatever it is, just some sort of information on when that Steam Workshop is coming. They did say, so many years set aside to continue the growth and evolution of the game, including new features, Blood Pack, Immortal Empires, redacted. Oh, okay. Ongoing fixes, auto-resolve, so on and so forth, continued adjustment to Realm of Chaos, and more. So again, nothing here for Steam Workshop mentioned in this kind of opening paragraph right there. So my overall impression here of this patch is it's overall very good. I think it kind of hit 70 or 80% of the things that people did request that they wanted change with the Realm of Chaos, or issues they had existing with the campaign. I still would like to see some sort of fix or change to the way that the AI cheats in the realm of Tzeentch. I think that's pretty crucial. I would like to have an option to just straight up shut off the realm of chaos, unless they tell us the Immortal Empires is coming in like a week. Just let me shut off the realm of chaos and play through all 12 of these campaigns however the hell I want. Like, don't limit my replayability because I don't want to have to deal with this mechanic. Sure, I know we can do the whole editing and shutting them off, and whenever the Steam Workshop opens up, probably someone's going to make that mod. The mod already exists. The mod already exists, right? You can manually download it and put it into your game. But that will be a big one on the Steam Workshop, and people will change the UI using the Steam Workshop, all that action. But just having it baked into the game, I think, is a pretty big step. So I would like to see that added. Well, I don't think they would ever do it. They didn't do it for the Vortex campaign, probably won't do it for this. But it is good to see these huge buffs to Danny Daniels now, the Daemon Prince, to have that way better baseline, to have all those pieces now have such a huge effect on the character, and to see the demon gifts, the pre-dedication ones, be so substantial, and having it so that you can get to an exalted lord way easier and faster. So I do really like those. The supply line fix, huge. Unit responsiveness, huge. Charge reflection, huge. And again, I'm saying huge because it looks huge on paper, so I want to see what that actually looks like when we actually get our hands on the game, put it through its paces, and to kind of discover any additional bugs that this might have caused, and discover how these things actually shake out in the campaign and how it plays. But as always, guys, thank you so much for watching here today. Go ahead and let me know in the comment section below, do you think that this patch 1.1.0 hit everything you wanted? Is there some things that you're still wanting that weren't even addressed in this? Go ahead and let me know your thoughts in that comment section below. But as always, again, like I said, have a good one and take care.